Decía que era una caja. Cuando me decía que era una escritor, que era una caja. Para que se lo imagino así.
Como que la oficina de Messi, el equivalente también, algunos de estos también. Sí.
No está mal.
Es como, a ver, si te lo ponen en el de papel.
Sí, ya muchísimo.
They're all Spanish speakers, but
I know.
we should do it in English. Huh?
Yeah, but if there's times in which you want to switch over,
Okay. Before, so maybe we could start.
we can start. Yeah. So I'm just going to do a brief intro, just to say how next door, and I'll let you lead the discussion. We have books. Why don't I get some books up here, actually?
Okay, good.
I'll bring some books up, and we've got books at the counter.
Great. All right. What I would do is I speak more about the book and then we'll let her speak about it.
Cool. Perfect. All right. Let me go grab some books, and then we can get started.
Ya podemos entrar. Vamos a hacer
Ay. Me dejas en la butaca presidencial.
Sabes que además estamos esto que dices, a mí me pasaba, yo viajaba un montón a
Santitos, ¿no?
América,
Sí.
y como yo no conseguía, me despertaba sistemáticamente a las 4 de la mañana.
Es que
Claro, cuando vives en Honduras o en Costa Rica, que te levantas ya a las 5 de la mañana,
Claro, como que
pasa
no pasa
ya
nada.
llegas, pero si no, era... Estabas en un todo, lo llevaba 2 días o 3, y no me bastante. Cenas, mañana, pum.
Es que claro, además justo se lo he escrito al WhatsApp de familia, ¿no? Entonces ahí iba así, me escribe, Ana, yo no me recupero jamás, o sea, no me recupero hasta que no he vuelto. O sea, cuando vuelvo es cuando me recupero.
Si ya vives aquí, pues se acabó una semana.
I'll just scoot back here. No, it's okay. Okay. I'll have to think about why it's Yo tengo una pregunta.
Indiscreta.
No, es una tontería. ¿Qué te la vida? ¿Te preparas?
No, quiero que sea una sorpresa. Prefiero sorpresa. Por el streaming, todo por el streaming.
Thank you so much for being here. My name is Adam, the owner of the bookstore here. Usually I have my event manager doing this stuff, which is why it took me a little bit longer to get the computer stuff going, so sorry. Miguel and Anapurna, thank you so much for being here. I just really appreciate you not only publishing a book, but also partnering with us and doing something like this. Graphic novels and narrative illustration is really important to me, and I don't get to do it very often and kind of get to do this kind of thing in the store, so it's a nice opportunity. Just a quick reminder, we do have books here. Grab one if you'd like right now to look at it. We also have them at the counter when you're leaving. Silence our cell phones, and I'll let Miguel lead the discussion. We talk for 20, 30, 45 minutes. Please ask some questions. There is a live stream, but don't worry too much about that. We can repeat questions if it seems quiet. And if I'm going to jump into Spanish, I think that's fine. But, it's up to you guys. So, but yeah, thank you so much, and join me in welcoming Anapurna. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here. It's a pleasure to be in this wonderful bookstore. I'm a writer and a book collector myself. So, and this is one of the first places that I came in DC when I came here. So it's a pleasure to have this activity here. And for us, it's the end of a series because we've had a long week. It's been a very intense week with Ana here because we wanted to show her all the link her to all the comic world here in DC. And I'm going to speak a little bit about the book, and then I'm going to ask her some questions about her job, her work in general, and what specifically she did here in this book. This is a result of COVID, which has to be a good result of COVID, and not all of them are bad. Because normally we don't produce these kind of books or exhibitions. We bring authors and creators, Spanish creators here. So that's our goal, to promote Spanish creators and cultural industries here in the States and to link them with their sector here. But in this case, we thought everyone was doing everything digital. So we thought, let's do a digital project that ends up being real, for once. So we had also to do something about Spanish legacy in the United States, how the Spanish contribution of Spain in the United States. And we, instead of going back to the past and doing it in a more classic way, we thought it would be interesting to do it with comic artists. Why comic artists? Because we agree in the office, it was all a team work. This is a work from all the cultural office team, and we thought it would be great because we think that we have a very talented comic artist in Spain, and it would be a good way to show them, and at the same time to show this contribution of Spain to the United States. So first we chose 7 subjects, 7 topics. One is the missions, the past. Then it's also Gálvez, who's another topic. Then the Spaniards in Hollywood. Then the Hispanism, which is the one that Ana did. Then the Spanish art in the United States. The United States is the second country in the world with Spanish art, which is something that most people don't know, due to this, what it was called the Spanish trace. This scholar Kagan speaks about Spanish trace. There was this moment in the States where everyone was crazy about Spain in the 20s and the early beginning of last century. Another one is the science, the Spanish science in the United States. And another very unknown part was immigration, because not a lot of people know that there was some immigration, interest in immigration of Spain in the 20th century also, like it was Italian or Irish. They're very well known, but ours is not so known. So that was another part. So with that, we had that was a major part to choose Ana Merino as a curator. Ana Merino is a Spanish writer, poet, novelist. She teaches in Iowa in the creative writing program of Iowa. But at the same time, she's into comics. She loves comics. She's a scholar of comics, and she knows all the comic ones. So she was key in 2 major things. One, the result of the book and the exhibition, in the sense that she chose the 7 artists that participated. And second, so that we could have this book with graphics, which was also a goal. No, we didn't want to do a catalog, so that we produced this catalog of the embassy, an official thing. We wanted them to be in a publisher of comics in the States, and that was Ana helped a lot in that, and we're very happy that happened finally. So this is it. This is the book. This is the result. Every artist had a scholar, so there was 7 topics, 7 scholars, and 7 artists. No? So the scholar was supposed to give them information about their subject. Obviously, if the subject was, for example, immigration, the artist was not supposed to do the history of immigration in a comic of 7 pages, which is what we asked them. What they had to do is take a story and choose a story, choose a single story, and be they could be free in the way they did their work, but the thing is that it has to be related to this subject. And the scholar wrote also, and that's part of the book, each scholar wrote also a text about it. So the great thing of the book is it has, well, even has this, it's like a map, as you see, it's one of them. So everyone chose how to reflect this topic or subject. This second one of Bernardo de Gálvez. Well, I'm going to read the names of all the, well, I don't want to lose anyone. Sonia Pulido, she was the National Prize of Illustration last year. So we chose her to do the cover of the book, which is, it represents what we want to represent in the exhibit of the book. The idea that Spain has been present in the history of the United States throughout all its history, and it's like our flag is getting into the other flag, into the American flag, and also you can see that people are dressed in different ways. So that's what Sonia did. There's also Sergio Garcia and Lola Moral. They did this wonderful map that you've seen. Sergio just did the cover of the New Yorker of last month. There was also Ana Penyas and Seisdedos. Each one did everyone. The other one is Max, who did the art, Carla Berrocal, who did the Spaniards in Hollywood, and Mireia Perez. You can see, and Ana, you can see that there are something very interesting. There's different generations of artists here, different generation of comic artists. Max is like a classic already, no?
The oldest.
The oldest, and then you have Sergio, who is my generation, and then you have Anna's generation, well, actually, if you see the ages when they were born, the age they were born, you have from different generations, and also that I think there were a lot of female comic artists. That's something that is also interesting, and it's something that is now, I would say, natural. We didn't tell Anna that she had to choose female artists, but now there's a lot of very good, talented comic female artists. We have the same program with literature, and it's been exactly the same. We have a program where we choose artists, writers that are under 40, and naturally, there've been more female writers than male writers, and that's something that it hasn't been organized like that, but I think it reflects exactly what's happening right now in Spain. So finally, we got the book. We got also an exhibit. The exhibit is now in our place. I invite everyone to visit it this weekend and next weekend, because we're closing it. This exhibit is being we opened it in the 8th of November. We had to close it again, and we're doing another event 3rd of March about science with the CUSA, which is the Science Association. The Spanish Science Association in the States. We're doing an event with them 3rd of March. And then the exhibition is going to NYU, to the university, and it's going to stay there until the end of the year. And we want to move this exhibit all along the States for a couple of years. And the idea is to do activities related to the subjects. We're going to do one in May also about Gálvez, but also bring the artists here and link them to the comic world in the United States. So the next one that's coming here to DC would be for SPX, which I understand is September. It happens in September, so that would be another good occasion to meet one of our other artists. I'm gonna shut up because I've spoken too much, and I'm gonna ask some questions to Ana. We'll have the pleasure of having here. She's been in MICA in Baltimore Tuesday, and then she had a conversation yesterday in our cultural center in the former residence of the ambassadors of Spain. That's the name, with Warren, the executive director of SPX. So Ana, please tell us about first thing. Tell us about how you became a comic artist, and why did you want, or why did you choose this this art form to express yourself?
So, well, when I was a kid, I wanted to write. I always thought that I would be a writer because my background family, it's all linked to books. My dad owned a bookshop, and my uncle, he's an editor, he's a writer, and I've been surrounded by books since I was a baby. So it's curious because I had all figured it out. It was like, okay, I'm gonna write books, then my uncle is gonna edit them, and my dad is going to sell them. And my brother was like, well, that is if you have an audience that buy your books. And I'm like, okay, you're right. And then I don't know, I just started to draw maybe around when I was 14, something like that. And I decided that I wanted to study art. And my background, when I was a teenager, I watched a lot of anime, a lot of like manga. I read a lot of manga. It was my main, the thing that I liked the most. But my dad had the first comic book shop in Palma. So I got to see a lot of comics at home. And besides manga, I started to read all the French, Belgium, like Linea Clara style, like Moebius and Jodorowsky and Bourgeois, and obviously Hergé and Tintins and all of this, right? And even I couldn't understand quite well what was happening. I was pretty fascinated by the images. So I just think that I found in comics the perfect match for my my inspiration. I wanted to write, but then I started to draw, and it was just the perfect formula for it, right? So yeah, I just developed my own language during this past 10 years. And yeah, that way I think I became a comic artist. So that will be it.
Tell us about what do you think about how this is the comic scene in Spain right now? Because there's been this evolution. Obviously, there's a different, comic scene in Spain or in Europe, let's say, than in the States. It has developed differently, But Spain didn't have, for example, the tradition that France had, and
not at all.
Where la bande dessinée was very strong, very early, and at the same time was considered. It was I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but considered as an art form, as a higher art form earlier than elsewhere. No? So how, and I'm getting quite old, so I've seen the scene, so I can say that I've seen an evolution. Like 30 years ago, this was something very eccentric in the sense that it was out of the mainstream. And now it's getting into many places like art galleries or
I wouldn't say art galleries.
Well, a little bit.
Wow. In bookshops.
In bookshops, and artists are considered and are also known elsewhere in Europe. So here in the States. So tell us a little bit about what do you think? How's the scene that you found when you started working in this?
So. I agree in some of the things that you've said, but I don't think that we are at the same level that in France or in Belgium yet. We might be, in the future, but not yet. It's true that comic books in Spain have always been related to kids, like, Te Veo, Ruetes del Percebe, this kind of stuff. And I don't think there was much people interested in reading like what we understand now as graphic novels or this kind of stuff. But this is, this has changed not long ago, but I'm still growing. And what I find very interesting is the quality of the authors that we have in Spain. And maybe it's because we don't have this tradition this long tradition. The comic books that we are doing are pretty, I would say, rare or experimental somehow, or at least the ones that I like and the ones that the authors which I mingle with. So I think it's very interesting. There's a lot of women, as you were saying, also in Spain doing comics, and it's very interesting because we have a totally different way to approach narrative and comics. And yeah, traditionally has been a white male territory, you know. So I'm happy and I'm glad that in Spain we've got a lot of women doing very interesting things and winning awards and publishing outside the country. So I believe it's in effervescent scene, and I'm very glad to be part of it. But the market is not the same, you know. So in Spain, if you're a comic artist, it's not like if you were a comic artist in France or in Belgium, you know. We don't get paid that well. We don't sell that much. That's correlated, obviously. So I don't know. I hope that we'll be there at some point. I hope that I can see the moment where comic originals gets into galleries. That will be my dream, you know, because I have seen it in France. It happens here in the States. It happens too. But for now in Spain, it doesn't. So hopefully we will see it.
Hopefully we will see it. I'm sure we will. And now tell us about your work here. No, I was telling you that her topic was Hispanism. For those who don't know, what we call Hispanism is the study of Spain and Spanish culture. And there was this movement of Spanish scholars coming to the United States, mainly after our Civil War, 1936, 1939. I have to say, for example, I have a very, very distinguished predecessor, which was Juan Ramón Jiménez, who was here as cultural counselor. And then for me, no, predecessor.
Okay.
Nobel Prize in Literature, the greatest poet, Spanish poet, and he was first here, then in the University of Maryland, and then in Puerto Rico. There were a lot of them. You mentioned yesterday Pedro Salinas, and that's part of our contribution to the United States. Is these scholars that taught so many students about Spanish literature, Spanish art, and Spanish culture in general. So that was her topic. So Ana, tell us how did you work with Ana Merino and with Lucia, the scholar that writes about Hispanism, and why did you choose this special topic?
Well, first of all, I am very grateful to Ana for inviting me to this project, and just the way she approached the issue. She told me that I could do whatever I wanted, which is amazing because it doesn't happen that much when it's an encargo, no? Like, so I was talking to her and I asked her for a few papers in which I could read more about the authors, like the Spanish diaspora in the States, literary diaspora in the States. And I don't know, I could have chosen Pedro Salinas, for instance, or Garcia Lorca, who was in New York for 8 months and he wrote Poet in New York, which is one of my favorite books. But reading those papers, I just found out a female figure who was Concha Zardoya, and she was a minor poet that went to the States after the war to teach, and was at different universities like others. And I just thought it would be more interesting to rescue a forgotten figure, you know, because I'm sick of the woman in the dark, you know. in Spain, when you study literature, you just study Rosalía de Castro and Emilia Pardo Bazán, and that's it. And it's okay, they're great writers, but I also think that it's interesting to give the chance to study also minor poets or writers who were women. So I found this figure and I just wanted to work with her, but I wasn't sure how. And since Ana gave me total freedom to do whatever I wanted, usually when I do my comics, they always start with a poem or with like prose, poetic prose that I write. So I just thought that it would suit my work very well if I chose a poem from this woman. And I just dig in a little bit of her history, and I found this book called The Exiles, in which Tardoya talks in a very nostalgic way about missing Spain, about he tries to enhance Spanish poets in the book too. So I was trying to get it, and it was kind of hard because it was edited by the Royal Hispanic Society of America or something like that. I can't remember well. And in Spain, it wasn't available. So I bought it online. And the story is kind of curious because the book got stuck in aduanas. Customs, sorry. And I was like, all right, it's not going to be here on time. So I need to think fast and do a different thing because this is not going to work. And finally the book came. And when it came, I opened it and it was signed and dedicated by the author, by Concha Zardoya. So this kind of things, this is magic. So that's why when I knew that I had to do that. So I read the whole book, and even though it wasn't my favorite kind of poetry, it had this longing that I relate to a lot. So I just found this specific poem called The Exiles, the same title, the poem, and I just draw a story with the poem. And I interpreted the poem and I just draw a story working with the poem. But I wanted to have the whole book, not just this specific poem represented in the story that I draw. So what I did is I pick up a few more poems and I try to extract an image of those poems. So the result is sort of dreamy, surrealist story about a girl who comes to New York and she just has this like magical journey in which she finds a patio andaluz with orange trees, which is impossible to see in New York, Also, she saw these three women. This image is from a poem called Tres Sombras Negras, something like that. And then another one that is called El Alto Navío or something like this, and it's where she just stares at the Flatiron building and she imagines or the Flatiron turns into the Titanic or something like that. And yeah, that was it. And I don't know, I'm very happy with the result. I know it might be hard to understand if you don't know all of this, but I wanted to, I don't know, I just wanted to create something that the reader can, just fly and just imagine wherever they want.
Yeah, it's very, very lyric. I think that it works. It can work even independently. It's each of the pages. It's like a poem itself, no? Even if they're all related to one poem, it could be.
So I tried to just get the sense of the whole book, and I don't know if I have done it well, but that was my intention.
Well, it was great. And now, before we finish and ask, let us to ask questions. Tell us about your actual project. You have a book that is gonna get out in France, or it's gonna appear in France.
I still don't know, but hopefully, because
you've been working a lot in that book.
6 years. Yes. Hopefully, it will come out in France if my editor is not totally mad at me because I kept him waiting for 5 years. But the thing is, yeah, it took a long time for me to do it because it's an experiment with narrative, and there's 2 books, Mark's book and Astrid books. So it's male perspective, female perspective of something that it's broken and the journey. And then they 2 stories kind of meet in the middle of the book in an epilogue. So there's 3 different narratives. So there's the inner thought of Mark in Mark's book. Then in Astrid is just dialogue. And then in the epilogue is a third person who narrates what is happening, right? And it's actually a rabbit. So it's kind of, it's very dreamy and I don't know, experimental, but I've enjoyed so much doing it. But you know, a project that takes that much time, then when you look at it, it's like that doesn't belong to me anymore. It's just like it's an independent thing. So I'm talking to editors. So let's see if it can be published soon. And on the other hand, I'm working with the City Council of Barcelona on a project about the strike after the Republic was proclamada. Sorry.
Well, the Republic established 1931.
Yeah.
14 April 1931.
Yeah. So there was a lot of people there who were very poor because they went to Barcelona to work and they couldn't pay the leases, so they strike and they kind of win, you know. So I'm working for the first time with a writer, and it has been a total different experience for me. I don't think I will do it again. not because the script is not good, just because I like to do everything. I'm kind of, you know, I want to do all. I'm very, very controlling. So, but it has been a great experience. It's not done yet. I'm halfway through it, but yeah, I hope it will come out soon enough and good. So those are my projects now. And also I'm working with ceramics, and I'm trying to create this whole comic book done in 3 dimensions in ceramic.
Yeah, that was something I wanted also to that you develop, because it's very interesting. What you were telling about this is it's happening like in literature, no? You imagine that a comic has to be a book, no?
Yeah, it's a language.
And you consider it a language, which is what it is. And tell us about this ceramic project, which is like taking the comic out of the comic. No? I'm creating these boxes, so there are art pieces that you can put like this, like standing on table or that way, like flat, and then another ones to hang on the walls. So the thing is to create a story in which each box is a panel, and the whole wall would be the whole story. So people can purchase just one panel of the story if they want. And then also another thing that I'm working with is drawing, because I do these boxes, but it's still drawing, you know, I'm just drawing on top of the ceramic. But then what I want to do is the characters of the comic, I want to create them in 3 dimensions, like little sculptures, and then the other way around. So I don't know, just like the way you can go from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions and so on. So that's just something I'm working with now, and I'm very, very excited about it. I dream about it. I can't sleep at night. It's all that I'm thinking now. And I know what's going to be next, because I've got for
of that work for a long time. So,
Great. So questions now from the audience.
Ander, vale.
So thank you, Ana. I really love your work, and I love especially the work you did for Illustrating Spain in the US. And I wanted to ask you about your process to choose the colors of your works, because I can see that you always use these kind of subtle colors, like very light purple, very light orange, and you can see it in more of your works.
Yeah,
so I wanted to...
it has been a journey. I hated color, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, in my first graphic novel, it was just ink and one marker, like one orange marker, because it was like, I can't deal with anything else. It's too much for me. Just one color is too much. But because I've always thought color is another part of the narrative, and it's very important, and it's scary because it can ruin it all. So it has been a process for me. I try to stick just to, because I color digitally normally, and I try to stick just to 3 colors and no more, because if I do more, it's like, well, this is shit, this is awful. I ruined it. I ruined it. So I really like this combination of colors. Usually they're alike, but not exactly the same Pantones. I try to work with like a cold color, a warmer color, and then another one that is in between. And usually this combination, it should work. You know, it's just like very basic, but then you can play with the layers, and you can get more than these 3 colors. You can get like 4, 5, 6, even 6, 7 colors, depending on the opacity that you work with. So yeah, it has been, now that I've found this combination, I think I'm going to stick to this for a while until I find another one that also works. For Norbu, which is my novel, the Mark book has this, not exactly those colors, but very similar. But the Astrid book has a green, it has an orange, very similar to this. It has a blue, not this lilac, more like kind of blue, and a green, which is really super scary. But I think it works. So you will see, hopefully you will see it. Hopefully. Maybe, I don't know, in another 2 years.
Well, the great thing is that it gives like a you can recognize your work just for the colors.
Yes.
And it really has been hard for me. Very, very hard. And I'm happy that you say that. You can recognize my work just for the color. Like, see, finally, I've made it. Because my drawing changes a lot. Even though I think I've got a style that you can recognize, it changes. It changes even in the same story, you know. It's very, very difficult to draw a character that it's the same every time. I don't know, I find it impossible. So my characters are always changing. Like sometimes the ear is this size, and then next page is like this, or the shape of the eye changes. But it's fun. I like it.
Good. More questions.
So now you're talking about your next projects, but I would like to go back to your past because I haven't read it, but you don't know. No, I wanted to know a little bit more about this other project, the Chucrut, I think it's called, which I haven't read. I'm ashamed that I haven't.
No,
but
I'm very ashamed of that.
It was a project that was very well.
It was
awarded, and
and
it had a lot of impact.
Yeah. No, it was very important. It really was. And you know, now I look at that book and it's like, it's awful. The drawings, oh my God, this is awful. But then it's like, well, it's not. I was 24, 25. It was my first comic, like the first one, because I have drawn maybe 3-4 pages, like short story or something like that, but nothing long like this. And I learned so much from just doing it, that I have to be more grateful to Chucrut and not being that I hate it, you know. But yeah, it was a story that I really needed to talk about, because it was the final project of the master that I was doing at the IED in Madrid, where I specialized in illustration. And it was kind of, I had this teacher and I showed him the project, and it was pencil at the beginning. And as you see, I draw by pencil now. But by that time, he told me, you just do it with ink. And I listened to him and I did it with ink. And it worked, because I presented the project at a very important contest in Spain, which is Premio FNAC Salamandra Graphic. And I won, and I couldn't believe it. You know, it was like, I remember that when my phone rang and I picked it up, and Catalina Mejia said, "Ana, you've won." I was like brushing my teeth, and I was like, the toothbrush just fell, and I was like, 1 second, and I was just like spitting all the toothpaste, and I couldn't believe that, you know, because it's a very, very important contest, and there was maybe 150 projects, so it was why me, why this? But it was very important because it was my story. Well, obviously fiction. Fictionalized? Is that it? Yeah. Okay. So it was my story fictionalized. Yeah, just 2 years ago, my dad passed away, and I went to Germany right after he passed, because I had to finish my degree, and I had this Erasmus that I had to, and it was kind of my salvation, you know, because I was totally depressed. I was 22 when my father passed away, and that's the thing that I don't think I will ever recover from that, you know. So I really needed to put all that I was feeling in something, and the only way that I knew how to was telling the story. So I thought, how? I'm not ready to write anything, so let's do a comic book, and it worked. So I really owned a lot to this book, even though I don't like it now, because I find it childish. But the story is not. The story is nice. So yeah, you can read it. You can read it.
I'm
You
not
read it.
gonna go to Spain.
Okay, so maybe the story, like, don't look at the drawings. They're awful. You know, the hands are like flipped and they're awful. But the story, I think, is nice. So.
And are you still working in this like autobiographical subjects, or are you like now done?
No. With Norbu, no. With Norbu, it's not. But there's always things about my life that I use, conversations that I have, scenes from my day life that I just put into the stories. The characters always look like people that I know. So yeah, there's always a part of what's going on here, you know, and here in what I do. So yes.
I think I have a question. So in another art form, in music, there has always been covers. So an artist like reinterprets the work of another artist. And if this doesn't happen that I know of in comic, but if you were to try to work with somebody's previous work and reinterpret that, who could be that, you know, that character, that author that you think that it could be an interesting,
very interesting question.
Take.
I've never been asked anything like that. I think I would go for something from my teenage years, maybe some manga. Yeah, maybe I would go for Sailor Moon, and I would do something like Sailor Moon, but just girls on skates fighting evil or something like that, you know. I would like to do that for kids. Yes.
Or not.
Or not.
Not only for kids.
Not only for kids, yeah. For everybody. See.
And one question about the process. Why? Because you were saying it took you a long time to do this last one, no? And what you were saying, it means that you're very autocritical with what you do, so you're very perfectionist. Borges used to say that you have to publish just not to be correcting a forever, no? So the good way to publish is that you get rid of the book and then
Oh, no.
you go to the next one.
No.
But
No.
being a writer myself, for me, it's very interesting, and how you want to tell a story, and if you do if you choose this kind of art, you have to concentrate a lot in what you tell. You have to be very precise on what you tell, because if you're writing a novel, you can put everything in a novel, no? You can put dialogues, you can put descriptions, you can fill it. But here, no, it's you have to be very like you've done in this wonderful work. And the story you told us about one story told by 3 different characters. What's the process? Why you choose which scene are you representing and why?
I don't know. It just comes out. I don't know. Well, usually I start writing.
Okay.
The writing part is the first one. That's it. And then I do the storyboard, and there's always changes from the script to the storyboard, and then from the storyboard to the finals. There are always changes. So maybe that's because I don't know. I doubt all the time. So I repeat a lot. Like I redo panels all the time. I read those scenes all the time. So yeah, I don't know. It's just, it comes out naturally. Then I wait for a few days. Then I go back to it and it's like, oh, this is awful. I have to change it. And it's just like that. I don't put much thinking in how to like represent this scene in the best way, possible. Now, maybe that's why this comic is not going to be sold at all.
No, on the contrary, no. But the thing is that you don't choose like a classical story where you take a character and then you choose a character, and when you have a character, the character just has its own story. So it's easier in this case that you choose a story and how to tell the story and then how to represent it, which is
I wanted to play with the narrative, I wanted to do something. I wanted to do a weird book, like in which you have like the split format. You've got a cover and another cover. So you've got here the Mark stories, and then you go like this, and there's another cover, and you go there, and you've got Astrid stories. So the reader can actually choose from which one to start with, even though it has instructions, because you should start with Mark's, because if not, it's kind of. And then in the middle, you just have a smaller fanzine looking like a story about 15 pages, in which you have a rabbit that is talking about how humans are really stupid, and he shows what happened, like the closing of the story. But I think it's hard to understand what's going on, because Mark's stories is very dreamy, very like what I've done here, very surreal. And the structure is kind of the classical hero coming back home, Ulysses story, with the hero, which is a hero, but yeah, I don't know if that hero, and then the guide, and then the anti-hero, and a lot of adventures, things happen in the story. And then Astrid is just life. It's just a girl trying to go through a breakup, and she's devastated because she doesn't understand a thing of what happened. So there's these two very, very different type of stories. So for me, they work, but I'm it's what I said. I've done it. I've put a lot of effort, and now it's not mine. It's just it has his own life, So I have no idea of what is going to happen with this. I just hope it will be published, because if not, I can just 6 years of my life thrown away. But I've learned a lot on the process, so it's fine.
So it's a little bit like Rayuela, you would say, the hot food, no?
It's a little bit. It's a little.
You can actually read it.
It's a little bit
of Cortázar, which is a little bit the same. Well, it doesn't have too many perspectives, but it has. You can read it according to different instructions. Or
I like this kind of games, you know, and I think the comic language is the best language to play with this kind of things. And yeah, I just have fun doing that.
One more question?
May I?
Yes.
Well, you were saying that you write before starting drawing, and I was thinking for this project, did you, when you are writing your screenplay or screen comic book, do you think did you think in Spanish or in English?
In Spanish. In Spanish, yeah, because the poem was in Spanish and all the book was in Spanish. Then they translated it, but it was all in Spanish. Yeah.
Well, if there are no more questions, just an applause for the author. Next event in September was another one of these artists. We don't know still who will hopefully come for the SPX festival. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Bravo, bravo.
Bueno, ha estado bien.
Muy bien, muy bien.
Muy bien.
Se demuestra que estás sin dormir, que estás lúcida.
Sí, estoy lúcida. Vale, vale, es que no sé ni qué estoy diciendo.
I saw that email about selling books last night. I didn't see it. I'm sorry, we couldn't
Oh
do it.
no,
last
it's
night.
okay. Yeah, no worry. We printed your flyers and we put it there with the QR.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if there's anything else like this that happens again.
Oh,
Something we can do.
sure.
Yeah.
We will, yeah, of course. I mean, you're the closest.
Yeah.
Bookstore.
Yeah.
So yeah, we be more.
Yeah. If you want, yeah. I'd like to just. I realized I was like, I've done. I used to work at Politics and Artists too. We'd go to sometimes go to other embassies and like we bring an author in. So if there's stuff happening, I'd also just go.
It's great.
I'll keep my ear out too. And if you guys do stuff, I'll keep
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so
yeah,
much.
yeah.
Yeah, I told you we all look super fast. It's all your place, really. I can feel it going to be.
Esto es súper aquí. En la tienda que Miguel sabe, se llama, es madera de papel, es muy bonita.
Yeah, usually like after the
Está
renovation.
allí por allí, ¿cómo se llama esto?
2019, usually
Right before COVID. But I took over.
Aquí o
Okay,
en
like change the
por aquí,
name
¿no?
of the store.
Igual aquí, sí.
Yeah, it's good. I feel very lucky.
Oh,
Very,
so,
that's nice. Like, you know, my hopes.
Mm.
It's like, it's like I hoped for
Yeah.
good things to happen, and it's kind of like it feels like, oh, wow.
it's pretty lovely. Sure, yeah. We can really see. Sure, you got fans.
Yeah.
In this.
Do you speak Spanish?
Lo intento. Pero mi primera lengua es portugués.
Oh,